ABC, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening. There was no military action in the South Atlantic today, but Great Britain drew a new line in the ocean and threatened to move the war much closer to the mainland of Argentina. At the United Nations, still no sign of progress towards a settlement. Tonight, a full report. We begin in London with Peter Jennings. Peter?
Frank, here in London, the British government stepped up at least the psychological pressure on Argentina today. What Britain regards as the war zone has been enlarged, partly because Argentinian fighter planes destroyed a British ship this week flying from the Argentinian mainland.
Her Majesty's government warns that any Argentine warship or military aircraft which is found more than 12 nautical miles from the Argentine coast will be regarded as hostile and are liable to be dealt with accordingly.
To enforce that zone, or try and retake the Falklands if it comes to that, Britain is also speeding further reinforcements to the task force. This is what will go now. More Harrier jump jets flying directly with mid-air refueling. 20 other Harriers traveling by container ship have either reached the task force or are almost there. Britain's strength in the air, weak until now, is gradually improving. Additional warships are also being sent, some perhaps carrying missiles, which may be capable of stopping Exocet, the Argentinian weapon which eliminated that British destroyer, the Sheffield. Also en route, British AWACS called Nimrods. On the political and diplomatic front, the Foreign Secretary held center stage here today. Francis Pym told a news conference Britain was relentlessly pursuing peace through the UN Secretary General. He wished Argentina would show the same readiness and desire.
We have not allowed Argentine military activities to halt the measures which our task force is taking. We will not allow their diplomatic obstructionism to do so either.
Mr. Pym said the present UN framework for negotiations meets all Britain's basic requirements. A reporter observed, then it's not acceptable to the Argentinians.
They invaded, they're the aggressor, they put their forces onto that island, and when the Resolution 502 was passed, they used it to reinforce that island. Thousands of troops they poured into it. They must be getting rather worried at the present time. Sorry about that, but it can't be helped. I certainly am not asking too much of them. The only thing they ought to do is to get off that island.
Prime Minister Thatcher met today with 2 Falkland Islanders and the island's British governor. There's just a hint in the air that Britain is prepared to alter its position on their future. Until now, the islanders' political decisions have always been paramount. More often now we hear their wishes will be given the fullest weight. The crisis appears to have provided a political bonus for Mrs. Thatcher. Her Conservative Party did much better than expected in nationwide local elections yesterday. It's being referred to as the Falklands factor. And now we go to Buenos Aires. Here's our chief diplomatic correspondent, Sander Van Oken.
They buried the dead today in Argentina, in Punta Alta, outside the main Argentinian naval base at Bahia Blanca. Some of the crew from the patrol boat Sobral, attacked Monday by 2 British helicopter gunships, which destroyed its bridge and killed 8 crewmen. The dead were given full military honors. While saddened comrades looked on, families wept. And finally, a last salute. And here in Buenos Aires late this afternoon, another ceremony for yet another member of the crew of the Sobral. The pregnant wife of a dead lieutenant walked behind his casket with members of his family and other comrades from his ship. At a news conference tonight, the captain of the sunken cruiser General Belgrano, Hector Elias Bonzo, said his ship had been sailing toward the mainland, was not a threat to the British. His ship was hit by 2 torpedoes on the starboard side, sank within an hour. The Argentinian flag was not lowered. Earlier this evening, the Defense Ministry officially responded to the British announcement extending its zone of exclusion to within 12 miles of the Argentinian coastline. It called the move one more act of British intransigence while peace efforts were underway at the UN. But there was reaction in newspapers to Argentinian loss of lives and British losses. While one Argentinian newspaper headlined, "This nation's known losses thus far," another accused Prime Minister Thatcher of trying to cover up Britain's. And to underscore the bitterness that is developing here against the British, slowly, surprisingly slowly, newsstands are starting to display magazines with savage caricatures of Mrs. Thatcher, with fangs. The Prime Minister is a pirate, and Thatcher and Haig being found in bed together by Foreign Minister Costa Mendes. There were no visible signs of diplomatic activity in Buenos Aires today. Foreign Minister Costa Mendes still waits to fly to the UN. As the Argentinians understand it, Secretary General Perez de Cuellar's efforts center on implementation of Article 40 of the UN Charter, which calls for provisional measures to end the fighting, but measures which do not prejudice the claims of either party to the dispute. In other words, from the Argentinian point of view, no forfeiture of their claims of sovereignty. From everyone else's point of view, no easy way out of this crisis. Sander Van Oker, ABC News, Buenos Aires.
This is Barry Dunsmore in Washington. In a statement as eloquent as anything he could say about the current American role in the diplomatic maneuverings, Secretary Haig this afternoon boarded a plane for Virginia, where he plans to rest. And so the focus remains the United Nations, although there, peacemaking may take second place to making propaganda. British Ambassador Parsons is on his guard to avoid any attempts to impose a ceasefire without a military withdrawal. Argentina has sent Deputy Foreign Minister Roz to New York, who tonight described the British decision to impose a 12-mile limit as an act of aggression. Meanwhile, President Reagan today reacted to the British 12-mile limit move with concern, but still blaming Argentina for the stalemate.
But I don't want violence to break out again. I'm hoping that we can have this ceasefire and the removal of all forces. So far, I understand that it is Argentina that is holding back on withdrawing their forces.
Some analysts here believe that the British have imposed that 12-mile limit to hem up Argentine air power on or near the mainland, and so allow the main force of the British fleet to come much closer to the Falklands. In that analysis, the next logical step is a direct assault on the islands. Barry Dunsmore, ABC News, the State Department.